So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Oh, real quick. Moment of silence for the haters. That's enough. So listen, this next video we're getting into, man, is why getting a job feels impossible right now. I know a lot of people feeling it and going through it. So let's check it out.
On paper, the job market now looks solid. Unemployment hit a 54-year low at 3.4% back in January of 2023, and U.S. employers added 2.7 million people to the payroll in 2023 alone. The January jobs report also showed the 2024 labor market was off to a solid start.
When we look at the hard data, it seems to suggest that the labor market has been fairly strong and in fact surprisingly resilient, especially after 2023 where we had headlines about layoffs and forecasts of recession. But when you look at the soft data, Americans tend to be a little bit less optimistic about how the economy is doing, and in particular about the job market.
Politicians just talking about how the economy is so great. I just want to scream from the rooftops. Then how come no one can find a job?
Recently,
That's what I was sitting here thinking, like, what changed? Please tell me what changed. War's still going on. Inflation is still through the roof. What changed economically for us to feel like the economy is back on the right track?
unemployed full-time workers applied to an average of 30 jobs, only to receive an average of 4 callbacks or responses.
If you look at the job vacancies, they're down a little bit, but not down enormously. But if you ask, how hard are you working to fill them? The answer seems to be not very right now.
So why does it feel so hard to get a job right now? And is the US labor market as strong as it seems?
Hi, my name is Jenna Jackson. I'm from Ardmore, Pennsylvania, in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
This job market is like the craziest that I have ever seen.
I was frustrated just with how my job search process has been going. I haven't quantified how many applications I've applied to. It would be a little depressing, I feel, at this point to quantify it, but it was definitely in the hundreds at least.
55% of unemployed adults said they were burnt out from searching for a new job. Younger generations were impacted the most, with 66% complaining of burnout stemming from job search.
Looking for a job can be a full-time job. There's a lot that goes into it. Filling out applications online can be tedious and can be time-consuming and can be really stressful.
Every day just feels like Groundhog Day. You're waking up doing the same thing.
When I looked at the data, if you just applied to a job through a job board, the odds of you getting hired were about 3%. So you got to apply to a lot of different jobs in order to have a chance to get them. And you're going to get lots and lots of just no responses. And it's exhausting if you do that.
A 2023 study from...
And I feel like a lot of the companies are just posting that they're hiring just for the sake of posting it to show that at least they are trying. But like he said in the video, I don't think they really want to hire. Think of what some of these companies are dealing with as far as with inflation, overhead, different things that they're having to deal with that keeps rising. And maybe their business isn't flourishing like they would like it to in this economy. So maybe they can't bring on somebody right now. Maybe scaling back is the thing to do for them. We keep seeing these massive layoffs.
Glassdoor revealed that mentions of applicants being ghosted by their prospective employers grew substantially since before the COVID-19 pandemic.
We often hear from job seekers that they send out tons and tons of applications and they don't even hear back. And that can be very emotionally and mentally taxing.
It's unprofessional as well. It's like, especially if you're going to take the time to do an interview with them, you can at least let them know.
And I think it's because of technology. It's easy to put up a job, and so many people can see that job. So when you get such an overwhelming response, it's often very difficult to get back to every single solitary candidate. Certainly during the Great Resignation, when the market was at a fever pitch, companies were being ghosted by candidates, which is something that hadn't happened as much in the past. So we've seen it happen on both sides of the fence, and I think a lot of it is caused by just sheer volume.
The time it takes.
I hear a lot of people saying that they keep hearing back from jobs that they're overqualified and things like that. Is that something y'all are hearing? Or they put it in some type of other type of terms that's basically pretty much saying the same thing, that you're overqualified?
Takes for a company to hire an employee also hit an all-time high, at an average of 44 days during the first quarter of 2023, with some industries like the energy and defense sector taking more than 67 days for hire.
The application process has been getting longer and longer, with going through multiple rounds and doing assessments. My worst experience so far was with a large financial institution, where I had a phone screen with them, and I also had a Zoom interview with one of the team members. After that, I had a case study where I was given very vague instructions. They got back to me and said that the team didn't feel like there was enough. They gave me another attempt. In the end, I just ended up just going back to the recruiter and saying, like, I'm sorry, I don't think this is the best fit. Because even if I did move forward and they were okay with my revision, there still would have been 3 more interviews.
A lot of employers think that doing more interviews is a good thing, and it's not a good thing. Most job interviews are not doing anything important. They don't know that the questions they're asking are going to reveal anything about whether you're a good candidate or not.
Facts.
They don't know when they ask the question what the right answer is. And this is
And all of these are facts. Why? Because I used to be a professional bomber at just interviews, bro. I sucked at interviews. I couldn't do a good interview to save my life, bro. Case in point, when I went for my fire department interview, bro, I thought the chief, because he was sitting at the table and everybody else had on like firefighter uniforms, so theirs were kind of like a bluish. He had on this white button-down shirt. I thought he was a cop. I didn't know he was the chief. That's how much I didn't know about the fire service, bro. I thought he was a cop. I straight up would bomb interviews, man. That just not good at all. I would completely blow them. I wasn't good.
development that's been going on for a while. It's not a good thing for anybody. And even if the labor market was stronger, you would still be seeing some of this.
There are generally 2 terms economists use to describe the state of the job market: tight and loose.
Usually when economists talk about a tight labor market, they mean hot, essentially. And mostly what that means is it is difficult for...
So what does this mean as far as the trajectory goes, as for people not getting a job, it being impossible to get a job right now? And I say that with technology. Everything that we're doing is to make our lives easier as far as technology goes, i.e. sort of replacing the human with technology. So if it's hard to get a job now, a few years down the line, it's going to be impossible. And then a few years past that, there won't be any. So this isn't good.
Meanwhile, research from Platform. By 2023, the ratio turned to 1 job for every 2 active applicants.
Right now in the marketplace, what we're seeing is both employers and employees being a little bit more selective. Everybody's taking a little bit more of a measured approach right now, being a little bit more selective in their choices, and that's why we've seen a little bit of a cooling in the marketplace.
However, experts reassure that the cooling labor market is no reason for concern yet.
It is important to have a perspective that's a little more historical on this. You know, if you're hunting for a job right now and you can't find one, it looks like a lousy job market to you. But compared to your parents' experience, it's a great job market.
I think that sentiment is outcomes minus expectations. So in 2021, 2022, there were labor shortages, companies were hiring very aggressively. And so even if 2024 is shaping up to be a relatively healthy labor market, by recent comparison, it doesn't feel quite as strong.
The cool down in the labor market was also what the Federal Reserve had intended with its series of interest rate hikes.
If you are the Federal Reserve and you want to slow the economy down, that means you want to slow the markets down a bit. The biggest market is the labor market. You know, if you look at what employers do, where their budget is, it's mainly going to labor. So you can't easily cool the economy down unless you cool the labor market down.
Experts also noted that the health of the labor market will largely rely on where the economy is headed next.
If the economy does slow down more significantly in 2024, if we see a recession in 2024, the labor market can be somewhat resilient, but it can't fully buck the broader economic trends. And so that's definitely something we want to watch out for in 2024. It's not a guarantee that the job market is going to remain as strong.
That makes me nervous. People without jobs, that makes me nervous, because then the crime rate starts to go up. A lot of things start happening. People start running out of resources, and now they're going into survival mode and ways to feed themselves and try to survive, i.e. crime and different things start to happen. This type of environment makes me nervous, bro.
Broadly speaking, we might have some optimism about the economy. That doesn't necessarily mean that the job search is an easy process.
I guess the big thing I would say is it's not you. You know, it's not you. It's happening to thousands of other hundreds of thousands of people at the same time. And it has to do with what's going on in the bigger economy. It has to do with uncertainty, but it also has to do with a lot of quirkiness inside employers about how they handle hiring these days.
It's definitely difficult out there, but you know, I just encourage you not to give up and still keep diving into your network and stay tight with family and friends, just to give you, the emotional support that you might be lacking at the moment, and to give you that confidence that you can do it.
The average American says they need to earn $233,000 a year to be financially comfortable.
Sheesh.
But in 2021, American workers on average made only $75,203 annually.
Americans are sort of looking at how much money they would like to have to be financially secure, and that ends up being basically 3 times what the average income is in this country. And to be essentially wealthy or really successful, it's magnitudes above that.
72% of Americans said they weren't financially secure given their current finances. And more than a quarter of Americans said they'll likely never be financially secure.
By the numbers, their debt is lower and their savings are higher coming out of the pandemic, but they're more anxious about what's going to happen next, if they have job stability, if they're going to be able to have secure retirement.
With well over half of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, many are failing to meet some of their modest financial goals.
There are actually millions of people struggling. It's not something that people want to talk about, but if you're in a place where your financial security feels super precarious, you're not alone. And it's not your fault.
So how did it become so difficult to be financially secure in America? And what can you do about it? Let's do some budgeting. Americans working full-time earned a median monthly income of about $4,400 during the second quarter of 2023. The average worker takes home 75.2% of gross wages after taxes and benefits, shrinking.
How about we start there? How about give us our full check that we worked for and earned? I think we paid enough. It should be like, once you get up to a certain age, you shouldn't have to pay taxes anymore. You done paid enough into it. Like, come on, man. If you let people, let's say you get up to, let's say 30, 35 years old. Once you get 30, 35 years old, you're done paying. You done paid enough taxes. Or set a limit. You know what I mean? Because maybe a person didn't really start working until they turned 30. But if you've been working throughout your 20s, you paid a good amount, going into your 30s, continue to pay good amounts, so it'll be done. Give the person their whole check, bro. They work for it.
The take-home pay to about $3,000.
Or mobility around the country, where some people say, I'm living in a high-cost state like California or New York. We really want to sort of pack up and go to an area that's less expensive. And one of the ironies of that is those places that were cheaper before are now becoming more expensive.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I don't know how it is back home now, but no, I do know how it is. My niece just told me. Like, the cost of living nowadays where I'm from, where it used to be super, super low. I think when me and Queen had the 2-bedroom apartment, man, if we paid $1,000 a month, I'd be surprised. I don't even think it was that much. I think it was probably 600-700 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. Wasn't that big, but 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Do you know how much you spend for that now? That's almost $2,000 a month. So it's crazy that they say that, but it's the truth. When we first had our first child, we moved back home because it was cheaper than the Atlanta life. The Atlanta life was more expensive. Then we had to think about childcare, and you know the cost of sending an infant to daycare. That's a whole nother mortgage. So for us, at the time when my mom was still alive, she had a daycare. So my thought was, we move back home, we get a place, I get a job, which turned out to be the fire department. You get a job, we send him to daycare for free because my mom had a daycare center. So it was like, okay, that makes the most sense. But that's what people are having to do. And then they have to commute in. And that's taxing with gas. So it's like, man, what do you do in this type of economy?
Americans spend on average $690.75 on food every month, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That amount is significantly higher than any of USDA's estimated grocery bills, including more generous and liberal food plans. Add the out-of-pocket health expenditures that cost the average Americans $96.42 every month, and you get a total expense of $2,816.17 for renters, and $2,744.17 for homeowners. That amount already accounts for 85% of the median take-home pay for average American renters, and over 82% for an average homeowner. This is excluding other essential expenses like transportation, childcare, and debt payments.
Many Americans are really struggling with just the increase of costs of living and food and housing. Utility bills have gone up. Car insurance has gone up. Homeowners insurance has gone up. And how can they pay for them but also meet other goals that they have to?
Budgeting experts.
He ain't even talked about, okay, if something goes wrong with the vehicle. We ain't even got there yet. We're talking about food. We're talking about rent or mortgage. You know what I mean? Gas. You're talking about insurance. If the car break down, tires, engine trouble, different things. Like, it's like, what do you mean?
Experts advise Americans to spend just 50% of their net income on essentials, 30% on wants, and 20% on savings or paying off debt.
You see that allocation shifting significantly where people are spending 75% of their take home just on needs, which leaves very little for wants and very little for saving for your financial future. So depending upon where you live and of course your income, many Americans really cannot meet that target allocation.
So much of managing your financial life in America today is like drinking from a fire hose. That many households are not able to show up and impose a framework of their own design onto their finances. Many are still in this reactionary space where they're just trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
The Federal Reserve has implemented 11 interest rate hikes to combat inflation since March 2022. But more than a third.
And they talking about, they were at the end of the year talking about cutting interest rates. But after this last Fed meeting, what did Powell say? They're not cutting right now. So that might be the thing you hear for a while now, is that they may not be cutting right now. Whatever that means.
A third of Americans said rising interest rates kept them from financial comfort.
Higher interest rates really can stand in the way of affordability for many financial activities or decisions that people want to engage in, and home purchases is sort of at the top of that list.
Look at the person who was going to buy a house that was, let's say, $375,000 2 years ago. Their monthly payment would have been less than $2,000. Now it's about $3,400. And it's the same house, right? The only thing that has changed is the interest rate.
Purchasing a car is more expensive. It's more expensive to maintain a balance on a credit card, with the new offers for a credit card, even for the best qualified individual, being at 20.5%, and other people are paying closer to 30.
The cost of capital is going up very rapidly, and many of the kind of toeholds we saw for lower income households was because they were having access to credit and to home loans and to other things in a relatively flat economy where they still had a good job market. The ability to access credit, both for small businesses and for households, is getting much harder as the financial system becomes more risk averse in that space.
Credit is essential because Americans don't have the savings to cover big expenses. More than 40% of Americans blamed insufficient retirement funds or emergency savings as the reason for financial insecurity.
For a lot of people, just to feel subjectively feel financially better, they need some amount of savings. A lot of financial planners will say 3 months of your income. That's, for many people, so overwhelming that they can't even begin to think about it.
More than half of Americans today said they didn't have
3 months is nothing when they just told you, we just checked the video before, it's hard to get a job. So telling somebody 3 months is all you need to have? No. It's hard finding a job. You need almost 6 months to a year, if not a year. Err on the safe side, err on the side of caution. A year or better worth.
Have at least 3 months of emergency expenses saved, including 22% that said they had no emergency savings at all.
It doesn't take unemployment to really knock somebody out of whack with respect to their personal finances if they're among the many Americans who say they cannot afford a $1,000 emergency expense and to pay that from their savings.
The reality is, if expenses are routinely higher than your income, you are not going to be able to put away meaningful sums. There are many, many households who do the verb of saving. You see money go into their account all the time. It just doesn't stay there because they are routinely hit with a need to grab that little bit of money and use it for some kind of income shock or unexpected expense or even expected expense.
36% of Americans said
Especially
they
if
had
you
more
got
credit card
kids.
debt than emergency savings. According to Experian, an average American holds a debt balance of $96,371, which includes several loan products like credit cards, auto loans, and mortgages. More than a quarter of Americans said debt was what kept them from financial security.
Debt is a way of channeling some of our financial resources, and that can be a very effective tool. Many of us are fans of credit cards that have rewards, for example, but if you're not paying that principal or debt off within the billing cycle, that's when those double-digit percentage interest rates hit, and that can then exact a toll on the other aspects of your personal finances.
How do we properly address this so that people cannot be in the cycle of just focusing on paying debt and necessities, but can even think about transitioning to that other 20% and creating an emergency savings, which causes financial stability, or even saving for retirement, which is the goal of creating future financial stability in retirement?
The fact that
some people don't even have that in their thought process, retirement savings or retirement. Some people can't even see that far to even think about it because they're dealing with it right now.
many Americans are living in financial insecurity poses a big risk to the economy as a whole.
There's a reason why we measure and monitor very closely things like consumer confidence or consumer sentiment, because what populates those data points are everyday measurements like inflation and the strength of the job market.
I think COVID really showed us that households, when they don't have a level of stability and security, are actually the primary foundation of whether the economy can be strong or not, because we are so based on consumer spending in this country.
Public policy can greatly improve Americans' chances of achieving financial security.
So, for example, Social Security is the bedrock of most people's financial security in retirement. It's not the only source of their retirement income, but it keeps a lot of older people out of poverty. And we know that Social Security needs some reforms in order to maintain its same level of benefits. And then also anything we can do to make sure that employers are offering any kind of retirement savings opportunities, emergency savings opportunities at work, offering employees the ability to enroll in benefits, whether that's health insurance or insurance for life insurance or disability insurance. Employers are a key part of this too, and public policies play a big role in terms of what employers can offer and at what price they can afford it.
The household's willingness to work toward financial security is also important.
Ultimately, the answer here is that solutions have to be arrived at the macro level as well as the household level. And so at some level, we all need to try to own our own financial success by managing our money as well as we can across the range of areas like emergency savings and retirement.
Financial advisors say the first step is to have a clear goal.
What do you want to achieve personally? What do you want to achieve at work? When do you want to retire? What do you want to do for others? And write that down.
But the key to success comes down to budgeting.
Everyone should budget. What we say is it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. And so think about and have some transparency of where is your money going. And then make sure the budget that you have aligns with the goals that you wrote down. If you say you want to retire early, are you saving more to retire early? If you want to put your children through college, if you want to be debt-free, are you paying more on your student loans? Are you paying more on your credit cards so you can be debt-free? Make sure that your budget aligns with your goals.
There are actually millions of people struggling. It's not something that people want to talk about, but if you're in a place where your financial security feels super precarious, you're not alone. And it's not your fault.
Many people who have really high incomes and a lot of savings still feel financially anxious. So don't feel like this is your fault or something to do with the fact that your income isn't enough. We all have to deal with this in different ways. And the most important thing you can do is just acknowledge that and deal with it and not try to avoid it.
Man, and the crazy part about it, man, it's like, it feels like we're dealing with this alone. You know what I mean? And then they use us as pawns come election time and, oh, I'm going to do this for this and I'm going to change this and I'm going to strengthen the economy and I'm going to put dollars and I'm going to make sure the job market and I'm going to do this just to get in office, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. You know what I mean? At all. So I don't know, man. How do you as an American get to that comfortable place you need to be? What is that plan? What is the strategy for that plan? And do you see, is retirement, do you see that in your future? Or do you see you working until you just can't go no more? And then eventually hoping that you get some type of government assistance. I think this is an important conversation, man. Y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Till next one, I'm gone.